talk about Australia, shall we? No, I'm not going to talk about the stumping of Johnny Bairstow. That might come up in conversation over the next 55 minutes, who knows. But millions of people from the UK are being invited to move to Australia for a working holiday. From this week, the nation's long-awaited amendment to their working holiday visa maximum age limit will come into force. This means that people from the UK between the ages of 18 and 35 can live and work down under for up to 3 years. Previously, people over the age of 30 were not eligible for the visa. So why is Australia such an attractive country for Brits? Because we keep reading that there's an exodus from the NHS to Australia. Consultants, junior doctors, nurses, all going to Australia for higher wages and more sun. But it doesn't always work out like that, does it? That there are plenty of examples of people, and let's widen this from Australia, but there are plenty of examples of people who, for whatever reason, decide that they want to seek a new life elsewhere. They've had enough of Britain, they can't get work, or they just don't like the climate, or there's something that drives them to think that the grass is greener elsewhere. And they go elswhere, full of positive intentions, expecting life to be a lot better. But for whatever reason, they then come back, maybe after a year, maybe after 5 years, maybe after 10 years, because it hasn't worked out. Partly because I suspect a lot of people miss various things about their home country, whether it's family, friends, the weather, Coronation Street. I don't know. So if you are one of these people who've decided to seek your fortune elsewhere, uprooted your family, gone to the other side of the world, or maybe France or wherever, and it hasn't worked out, I want to know why and what happened. 0345 6060 973. There is a funny story attached to. Well, I think it's a funny story. Fred Asquith is somebody who thinks that Britons who choose to uproot their lives and move to Australia for no good reason are basically idiots. He says he's had several friends abandon him and move across the world in search of a better life. He's a comedian. He says he doesn't understand the hype about Down Under. He said he planned on moving to Melbourne for his gap year, but ended up flying back to London within 3 months. Well, I don't know what that says about him. He's very big on TikTok, apparently. Got 250,000 or so followers, and he spoke with me earlier. And I asked him the obvious question, what has he got against Australians?
I haven't got anything against Australians. They're lovely. I've got classic answer. I've got loads of Australian friends. No, but it's just my mate is moving to Australia soon, and so it sent me into this frenzy of a rant, and that seems to have been taken lots of different ways.
So basically, this is a way of telling your friend that you're going to miss. Is it a he or a she?
It's a he. So
you're really going to miss him, and you don't know what you're going to do with your life.
Exactly. I've been friends with him since I was about 12. So he's just now I'm going to his wedding next week, and then he's jetting off a month after that. So I was just like, well, where's the friendship going to go now? Down the drain. That's where, Ian.
It doesn't have to. I mean, there are ways of communicating now. Have you ever heard of FaceTime video, for example?
The thing we're using right now? Yeah, no. I completely agree. I was being a bit facetious, and it was in jest. I mean, I do believe that, like, once he's, like, that far away, I think it is natural that you're not going to be in touch as much. But yeah, we're going to obviously keep in touch a bit. So I was exaggerating for comic effects.
So you're not, in theory, against everyone moving abroad. So you're not really against abroad, are you? That's what I'm trying to say.
No, not at all. No, it's more just I moved to Australia after uni for 3 months I was attempting to do a gap year, and after those 3 months I was like, do you know what? Life's kind of just the same wherever you are. It just depends wherever you want to be. Life isn't necessarily better here than it is there or whatever. And I just was like, I fancy going home. So My point is that a lot of people go off about this, like, let's move to Australia because I'm going to go find myself and everything's going to be great down there. My point is like, well, it's not different. It's just a life in a different country. Everything's going to be very similar, really.
That's really interesting, because that's what I want to explore in this. I want people to ring in who've moved abroad and then live to regret it, because I think there is this sort of utopian feeling about moving to Australia. You hear lots of doctors and nurses say, "Oh, we're going to move to Australia because we'll get paid more there, and there's lots of sunshine." Well, there are downsides, aren't there, to whatever country the grass is not always greener.
The grass is not always greener, and I think in the case of, like, say, my friend or people in that situation, you are leaving behind lots of relationships that you've spent your entire life building up. And I think that people, and including me after uni, I think people underestimate what it's like to leave all that behind and try to build an entirely new life, because you can keep in touch, but it is different.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people do go over there and think, oh, it is sunnier and maybe I do get paid a bit more, but I do miss those relationships. And so they end up coming back, a lot of them, or in my experience anyway.
Do you think maybe, Fred, you're a bit of a needy friend, and that maybe this is just one big excuse just to get away from you? And he hasn't got the courage to tell you to your face.
No, 100%.
Or is it his evil wife-to-be who's behind all of this?
No, she's lovely. No, he's definitely trying to get away from me. I think that's the answer. I think a lot of people spotted that. Yeah.
So have you got any candidates to replace him as your best friend?
Well, thankfully, he's part of a kind of home friend group that is 4 people strong. So once he goes, I guess there'll be 3 people left, including me. So I guess there's already 2 there waiting.
Well, I hope you get over it. I hope it's not a too traumatic an experience. Are you doing the best man speech?
No, I'm not even the best man.
Well, you see, that was the clue.
Yeah,
I'd have spotted that.
Yeah, I'm a groomsman. Now, the best man's obviously buzzing that he's going to Australia. Really happy for him. What a lovely idea. I'm the groomsman, well, no, not even a speech. But I don't think he wants me to do a speech after this video.
Oh, I think you should. I think you should do a not the best man speech. That would be much more entertaining.
Yeah, just rant about his trip.
And that was the TikToker Fred Asquith there. Well, let's get a better sense of how many people are making this decision to leave good old Blighty and live abroad. Paul Morland is a demographer, author and broadcaster, and he joins us now. Paul, very good evening to you. People have always sort of emigrated from this country. Lots of people come to this country. I mean, are there different trends that you can discern now compared to, say, 50s or 60s?
Well, if we take a really long historical view, we're often told this is a historic country of immigration, which of course isn't true. That really is a recent phenomenon, unless you go back to the Normans and Saxons and so on. But in the 19th century, Britain was a huge country of emigration. Of course, we wouldn't have Australia there as we know it. The island, the continent would be there, but the country as we know it wouldn't be there if it hadn't been for massive British emigration, nor would America, nor would Canada, nor would a lot of else of the world. So British emigration, particularly in the late 18th and 19th century, really created the world that we know today. Emigration's gone up from about 300,000 a year to about 600,000 a year, roughly, over the last sort of 30 or 40 years. And an awful lot of that is simply because we are having more immigration. And an awful lot of the people leaving the country are people who've come to study or come here for one reason or another and go back. And of that 600,000, only about 100,000 who leave every year are Brits who go for all sorts of reasons. And that's actually not all that much out of a country of 60 or 70 million people.
I'm being assailed by people texting in particularly saying, I went to Australia, came back after 3 years and they're giving all sorts of different reasons for this. I mean, I don't particularly just want to concentrate on Australia, but I don't know if these figures exist, but what percentage of people who decide to emigrate to another country end up coming back?
The figures are really very difficult to know, but what we do know is that in those immigration figures are Brits returning in number, not very much lower than those leaving. So in the end, most come back. I mean, people go for all sorts of different reasons. For example, a lot of boomers are starting to go to France and Spain, to the sun, as they retire, or they have been doing for the last sort of 20 or 30 years. And that's actually continued despite Brexit. And the general pattern is they head off sometime in their 60s and then they come back sometime in their 80s, wanting to be back with their children and take advantage of a healthcare system that's free and where English is the spoken language. So there's an element of that. And of course, a lot of people go for work and then return for all sorts of reasons. So for every sort of 1.2 out, there's about one in. I'm just talking about Brits.
That's really interesting. And what are the countries that people mainly go to? I mean, we've talked about France, Spain, Australia, obviously. What are the next two or three on the list?
Well, the data on that isn't brilliant. It's a little bit out of date. But the latest data I saw was that indeed Australia is the most popular destination. So Mr. Asquith, I think his name is perhaps typical in losing friends to Australia. The States is still very popular. And those two countries, obviously the English language, certain cultural familiarity, a lot of family links, that attracts people. And historically, while we were in the EU, quite a lot of people went off there. And as I said, despite leaving the European Union, people still are continuing to go to the sunshine when they retire to Spain, to southern France, to Portugal.
Thank you very much, Paul. That's Paul Morland there. So let's balance this up a bit, because I've been asking for people to phone in who have moved abroad and then come back. I want to know why you've done that. But I know we've got listeners all over the world listening right now. Give me a call and tell me why you decided to leave the UK and go to the country that you live in now, and why it's worked out for you. So we can mix and match over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. 0345 6060 973. Millie says, I actually moved to Australia for around 3 years. I thought it was too hot and generally just wasn't my thing. Mike says, my brother lived in Australia for 15 years. Now he's back in England and he has a wife and a child. I'm not sure the two things are necessarily related, but you never know. So we will come to your calls in just a few moments' time. It's 17 minutes past 9.
LBC. This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
90 minutes past 9. And if you have moved abroad and you still live abroad, what do you most miss about this country? When I lived in Germany, the thing I most missed was Yorkshire pudding, so I learnt how to make it. But there'll be lots of other things that people... Maybe we'll have that on the text, 84850, if you want to tell me what you miss about this country. Stuart's in Edinburgh. Hello, Stuart.
How are you doing, Ian?
All right, thank you. What would you like to say?
I left in 2003 to go to New Zealand. A lot of reasons for that. I just graduated from university. I was a bit sort of lost. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. So I had a friend that moved out to New Zealand before that, and I decided to follow him out. And I ended up staying for best part of 18 years. And I arrived back in Scotland sort of March, April last year. And I guess it's just your question around, what were the things I missed? What were the reasons I came back? I was thinking, I think family was part of it. I think the distance between countries like New Zealand and Australia is enormous. You're flying sort of 24 hours plus to get anywhere. And the cost of that, if you're living in the Southern Hemisphere, to get to the Northern Hemisphere is massive.
But you knew all that before you went, though?
Oh, of course, yeah. But I guess, life is, I think, there was a comment I think I heard you when you were talking to the chap earlier. Life is just the same. It kind of is. And New Zealand is an example. Yeah, it's slightly warmer and a lovely place, fantastic people. But there was something untangible that I missed about Britain. And when I got back, I realised that it was the people, the kind of eccentric nature of some of the people, the diversity of culture, the buildings, there was just something about it. My Irish friend put it to me. He said, Stuart, I think part of the reason you came back is New Zealand wasn't quite Raj enough for you.
Quite what?
Heard the word Raj.
I dread to think what that means.
It just means kind of just a bit edgy.
Right.
And I think maybe that's what I missed.
Maybe you should have moved to Australia then, because Australia is very Raj.
I don't know if it is. I worked in Australia for quite a long time. Again, I loved it. Great place, but I just couldn't quite see myself there.
I thought that before. I've only been a couple of times, and I suppose I've spent 5 or 6 weeks there altogether. And I expected not to like Australia, but I immediately fell in love with it and thought, yeah, I could live here.
Yeah. I thought that, but maybe when you get a bit older. I mean, I'm 50. You sort of, there's something that pulls you back, and I think it's the same if you're a Kiwi or an Australian living in Britain or something. I've seen a lot of them sort of return back to the homeland when you get a bit older. There's something that pulls you back, and sometimes it's quite difficult to actually figure out what that is.
But both Australia and New Zealand, I think in some ways, certainly when I was in Australia, a lot of their television programs came from Britain. That they would, I think that at that point, they would take our breakfast television programs, and it wasn't Britain, but a lot of the food in the supermarkets, there were lots of British foods there, which, again, that may be slightly different now. I don't know. But if you were missing home, you could find things that reminded you of it.
Yes, true. In fact, round the corner from where I lived in New Zealand, in a place called Petone near Wellington, there was a British shop that sold all sorts of just oddities, British oddities. You're right, but there's just something that pulled me back, and maybe it was partly the pandemic and wanting to feel connected to something again, where I felt like you could live somewhere for so long but still feel like you're a bit of an outsider. Not that I wasn't welcomed in New Zealand. I was, incredibly, but I never felt like a New Zealander. I always felt like a Brit.
Yeah.
Or a Scot some days, it depended.
Well, Stuart, thanks for phoning in. Hope you'll come to see my Edinburgh Fringe show in August. Let's go to Andrew, who is in Sydney. Hello, Andrew.
Hello. Listen, I just wanted to tell Britain some home truths about Australia. Listen, Australia is a fabulous country. Everything works here. We don't obsess about the medical system like you do in Britain, and it's a no-nonsense country. We had some stop oil people go on the Harbour Bridge. One guy was from Germany. He was picked up, put on a plane, deported 1 hour later. So it's very no-nonsense. We don't put up with any of that stuff.
Fantastic.
But what I wanted to just say, property prices make property prices in England look like, I don't know, monopoly money. It's only about 60% of the people here are eligible for full NHS medical system. You all have to, if you earn over a certain amount of money, you have to actually buy private insurance. If you have to pay for your ambulance. My partner tripped over. He had to get into an ambulance. £300 to go around the block. In terms of the weather, we're going skiing at the weekend. It's -8. Sydney's it's 2 degrees here. Everything is hugely expensive, but wages are very, very, very high. And property prices are high, but it's not sunny upland. It's a great country. Everything works. We don't have to put up with this sort of stuff that I hear on LBC the whole time about everything falling apart in Britain. But it is a tough country to live in. You have to work hard, and property prices are all across Australia. Even if you go into regional areas, you're talking it's $1 million for a house. So that's
really?
Oh, it's huge. You can look it up on if people are interested. There's no such thing as cheap property, and we live in this massive country, 25 million people. So if you're coming here and you think you're going to afford a lovely house close to the beach and all that sort of stuff, even as a consultant, think again. It's a brilliant country to live in. It's such a high standard of living, and it's great quality, but it's expensive. A waiter who works on a Sunday here will be earning, with all the penalties, 75 Aussie dollars, £60 an hour. So, you put that into practice, and it's expensive. But listen, I have nothing but love for this country. It's the best country to live in, I think. I've lived in the States everywhere. But it's not some sort of, you're going to arrive here and get a lovely house close to the beach and all that sort of stuff. And, my worst thing is I can't come to one of your For the Many events with Jackie in anywhere in the UK that easily. That's the worst thing about living in Australia.
Well, if somebody wants to sponsor Jackie and I to come and do a show in Australia, I'm sure we'd be only too happy to do so, Andrew.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's just a highlight of my week. And we have a whole group of people here to get together and talk about you guys. Yeah, we do. We love it. And it's really funny because I found them on sort of Twitter and all that sort of stuff. And they're the most, it's like a Chinese universe.
It's a cult.
Yeah. It is cultish, and we go and talk about, we were like so upset when your dog died, and we were like physically upset for you, and when you felt, we were like, the minute we heard about you falling down the stairs, the escalator, we were all texting and WhatsApping each other, so, it's furious interest in you and Jackie here in Down Under. Well, so, but that's the worst thing.
Andrew.
Wages.
Therapists are available.
I know. I don't think there's anything that can cure this. There'll have to be a new school of psychiatry about people who have withdrawal from Jackie. And and when you said that you weren't coming back to LBC until September, I was bereft.
Well, I like to give you a nice surprise.
But no, I just wanted to say it is a wonderful country, but if people think they're just going to arrive and buy a house by the beach and have sunny weather, or it's expensive and it's tough.
Well, Andrew, what we're going to do, Corey, who I'm looking at through the window now, who, as you know, produces the For the Many podcast. Amazingly, it does have a producer. You'd never know, would you? Yeah. We're going to clip that bit and put it on this week's podcast so everyone else can listen. And you never know, there might be some rich Aussie out there who thinks, I'll happily stump up a few $1,000s to bring them over.
Yeah, too right. Anyway, the cricket's going to be good. We're all talking about the cricket here as well, by the way. It's obsessive. And it's all like, we've got, there was a picture on the Sydney Morning Herald, it was hilarious, of Piers Morgan, Rishi Sunak, and everyone with dummies in the mouth and saying, they've spat the dummy. It's hilarious. Everyone is going to be glued to the cricket.
No one likes a clever dick.
Anyway, listen, thank you so much. And I just wanted to take care.
Bye-bye. Well, that took a turn, didn't it? Right, let me read out a couple of texts. Jane is saying, what an interesting programme. I would like to... Oh, no, this is about the NHS. Sorry, Jane. We've gone on from that now. This is another text saying, my wife and I go to Australia as often as possible, about every year. The pay might be better in Australia, but the cost of living is so much higher. I go to visit my stepdaughter and other family, but a pint costs £10, and housing is just off the scale. The grass might look greener, but life goes on, and you still have the normal problems that life throws at you. Well, I guess that's true, isn't it? And you got the best of both worlds. You go for a bit and then you come back again. Keep calls coming, 0345 6060 973. Somebody else says on a text here, Dale Down Under has a certain ring to it. Pervert. 9:30 is the time on LBC. Daryl Jackson has the news headlines.
An 8-year-old girl has died after a car drove into a prep school in Wimbledon on the last day of term. A woman in her 40s has been arrested on suspicion of causing death by dangerous driving. A pilot's been airlifted to hospital after a light aircraft crashed in Suffolk. Police say the man suffered serious injuries. And the RMT union has announced a fresh wave of London tube strikes beginning on the 23rd of July. Different parts of the service will walk out over a 6-day period. LBC weather, heavy rain and strong winds across Northern Ireland, Scotland and northwest England. Dry and clear elsewhere with just a few patches of cloud and a low of 14 degrees.
This is LBC. Iain Dale on LBC.
9:33. We're talking about Australia and indeed other countries, but it's interesting that Australia are relaxing their visa restrictions for British people between 18 and 35 to be able to go to Australia and live for 3 years. No questions asked. Well, I mean, why not? I always think if you are in your late teens, early 20s, that is the best time to go and live abroad, I think, because often it's too late by the time you're in your 30s. You might be married with children, and it's, unless you decide to emigrate, it's too late then. So anybody in their 20s, travel while you can is what I would say. 0345 6060 973. Also asking, I mean, maybe you're tempted by that offer, but also, what about if you've decided to emigrate to a particular country and it hasn't worked out? Why not? Why did you decide to return to this country? Ian is in, is it Raleigh or Raleigh in North Carolina? Ian, hi.
It's Raleigh.
I thought it was, yeah. What would you like to say?
Yeah, I understand why people might not want to stay in Australia, not because of Australia, but one of the reasons that my wife and I chose to live here, apart from she has family here, is that it's it's a very easy journey back to the UK. It's sort of 5-6 hours. It's what, $700, $800 for a round trip. So it's not sort of silly money. But yeah, you're asking about sort of the sort of things you miss. I mean, my children are both in their 20s. I definitely miss them, although we talk all the time. I miss friends, but I've made new friends here. And honestly, this is going to sound like such a suck up, but I genuinely miss the BBC. And I was quite glad when you moved to the later slot, because now I can listen to you on my way home from work or when I get home. So, I do slightly miss Nick Ferrari, but only slightly.
There's always catch up on Global Player, Ian.
Indeed, and I caught Mystery Hour this morning, so that was awesome. It's that kind of connection. It's that kind of connection back to your kind of original country.
Yeah.
That means a lot. What don't I miss? Well, I mean, right now it's sort of mid-80s, and I shall get home and jump in my pool, and and we've got, I don't know, a fairly decent-sized house that in the UK the Daily Mail would refer to as a mansion of some kind, probably. It's not that big, but it's big enough. And all of that was cheaper than the tiny little 4-bedroom house in Cambridgeshire with a postage stamp garden that I sold.
Do you think you'll ever come back?
Super cheap here. My wife and I had talked about it. My mum's getting on, and at the point if she finds that she can't cope well on her own, I could see us coming back for a period of time. Genuinely, no. It's just so nice. It's just so nice. I walked out of the office this afternoon, and it's 90 degrees, and we've got this beautiful car park with pine cones, and it smells lovely, and there's tons of place for our dogs to play, and there's some of the cultural stuff that I miss. I miss doner kebabs. You can't get doner kebabs in North Carolina. It's just not a thing. Not enough German immigrants. So I'd have to go to New York. That's my nearest doner kebab.
I've never had a kebab. It's not a terrible thing to admit.
On the other hand, I can probably get better burgers here. So, there's upsides and downsides.
Let me correct you on that. Let me correct you on that, Ian. If you've never had a Five Guys burger, you haven't lived.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. It's a bit of a way of life here, to be honest.
Well, no, absolutely. Great, Ian, thank you very much indeed. Let's go to Paul, who's not in a foreign country. He's in Deal in Kent. Hello, Paul.
Hi, Ian. Nice to speak to you again, and a privilege. So I can't top the guy from Sydney, but I lived in Malta for about 16 months. And I must admit, just to echo something that he said, they are a no-nonsense country as well. They don't take immigrants in. They just turn them around with a gun pointed to them, and that's been known. But do I miss it? Yes. Would I go back again? 100%. And something I don't agree with you when you said it's all the same, it's all the same. It wasn't. Someone like me, who's asthmatic, suffers from eczema and hay fever. Living out there for that time, I hardly ever used my inhaler. My health improved so much purely on the basis of the Mediterranean diet, and it was sun. I was driving buses out there as well, and I loved every single minute of it.
So why did you come back?
Well, my partner and I, we agreed that if anything ever happened to our families, we would put them first. And my mum became very ill, to which she passed away. So I had no choice, but to come home and support the family. And, I'd go back, but when you moved out there with shipping containers and drove back in a transit van, it's like 11 grand of my money. But the country, Malta, is so tied to the UK in every aspect. If I had to go to the Matador Hospital because I wasn't well, you show your passport and there's no charges. The only charge I ever had to do with relation to the health was pay €8 to go and see a GP. It's different, but it's very British as well. I mean, Christ, they even adopted the highway code. You wouldn't have thought so the way they drive. But, I just loved it. I loved getting up, walking in the sunrise, hot, driving an air-conditioned bus. The people respect you. You respect the police. If you didn't respect the police, you got a gun pointed at your head. I left this country because I just saw no future for it. It was a dump. And, you know, we all moan about it, whether it's politics or NHS or money or rent. You know, I've got a house out there. And to be a resident, which I am, of Malta, you have to have a job. You have to have national insurance numbers. They don't take any rubbish. But when you do get in and you are settled, they welcome you with open arms. And it's a lovely country to be in. It's a Marmite country, don't get me wrong. But I loved every minute of it. My health was 10 times better. And I'd go back tomorrow without even thinking about it.
Okay, Paul, thank you. Mark is in one of the most wealthy countries of the world, in Monaco. Hello, Mark.
Hi, Ian, and welcome back.
Is it an actual country, Monaco? It's a principality, isn't it?
It's a principality, but it is a country. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, very small. Only I think 3 square kilometres. But yeah. I moved here last year. And your question was, what do you miss? Do you know what? I really, really miss the English rain.
Oh, come on.
No, I do. It's hot and humid here, and it's just nice to have that break in the weather, and it doesn't really happen. So, yeah, I'm coming back tomorrow for a few days, so I'm looking forward to the rain.
Well, I think there is going to be a bit of rain over the next few days, which will probably wipe out the cricket. But it is interesting that sort of the English, everyone thinks that the English are obsessed by weather, and in some ways we are. I say the English, I could say the British are obsessed by weather. We always want what we haven't got, though, and I suspect part of the reason you ended up in Monaco is you wanted the sun, and now you want the rain.
Well, it wasn't really to do with that. It was a job, and it kind of happened unexpectedly. But since I've been here, there's not much I miss, I'll be honest. I miss my mum, and I miss the rain, as I say. It's I thought I'd miss more. I love England. It's a great country. I love London, where I'm from. But you know what? I'm not really missing it that much. And I wake up in the mornings. In England, I'd wake up in the morning at 6:30. I'd feel tired, and the weather would be rubbish, and I'd have to commute, and I felt really exhausted. Here, I wake up with the sunrise, and I feel invigorated and energised. It's that bit I wasn't expecting, which is a really nice surprise.
Mark, thank you very much indeed. Well, let's move along the coast a bit and talk to Alison, who wasn't wafted here from paradise. She is wafted here from Mallorca, and you have to be a certain age to understand the reference there. Alison, hello.
Hello, and it's so nice to hear your voice. And can I just echo what everyone has said about how much we've missed you? And it's so nice to have your wisdom and your words and your voice. What Andrew said earlier about, no. He spoke for all of us when he talked about, what you went through with losing your dog and your escalator accident. It's so lovely to have you back. You mean a lot to a lot of us, and I know you know that, but we can never say it too much.
It's very kind of you. Now, what have you phoned in to tell me about?
So it's really interesting listening to everybody who's done this, and there's so many sort of recurrent themes, aren't they? The grass is always greener. We always want what we haven't got. I think so many people are talking about they move abroad for the weather. So I moved abroad 4 years ago for a job, and that was the sole reason. And yes, I do live in Mallorca, which is a very beautiful place, and I feel very lucky. And it's a lovely island to live on, and the weather is very wonderful. But all of the people that I've heard this evening are talking about, there's a real common theme, isn't there, about what they miss. And I'm not just talking about Waitrose and M&S or those things. They are important. There's a cultural ties. It's about people, isn't it? And it's about the people that we care about, and those ties that we have. And it's just interesting. All of your callers before me, I've sensed a certain sort of longing for whatever they've done. And I moved, as I said, for my work, and I love my work. My work defines me. I don't know if that's like a bad thing. That's what I moved for. And I love my job, and I take my job and my work very seriously. But I do miss all those things that people say. It's all about people. And you said something earlier, and you said travel while you can. But, that's the point, isn't it? Travel while you can. But that doesn't mean you have to up sticks and move abroad. And I do think this grass is always greener thing is a really important message. Your researcher was saying, should we blame people for moving abroad? I mean, blame is a pointless verb, isn't it? We should just question and guide and hope they're doing it for the right reasons.
Well, I think it's fantastic. We live at a time where people can choose within reason where they want to go. And obviously different countries have different restrictions. And I think it is difficult the older you get to be able to decide to emigrate. I mean, I think a lot of people, a lot of countries would now, if I decided I wanted to go to Australia because of my age, I suspect I wouldn't be allowed to. So you have to do a lot of these things when you are a younger age, generally.
But I think you have to do it. I think you have to decide, are you going for travelling and experience and adventure and excitement, which is fantastic, or are you going to, make a new life? And I think the point, and the many callers have said this, be careful. And by the way, you don't have to go to Australia to do the For the Many. You can come to Mallorca. You can come, and I will sponsor you. It's EasyJet flight. You can come and do it from my terrace in Port Andrax. There we go. There's an offer on air.
Well, I thank you very much. Now, you will remember this.
Were you truly wafted here from paradise?
No, Luton Airport.
That was one of the most famous
television.
Exactly, one of the most famous television adverts, I would say, of the early 1980s. It's an absolute classic. Well done for Corey for finding it, because I suspect, Corey, you've never heard of Lorraine Chase. No, not a clue. Young people of today, Alison. Thank you very much indeed for phoning in. We'll come to more of your calls in just a moment. It's 9:46.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Colin Brazier.
Keir Starmer wants oracy, the ability to speak fluently, accurately and confidently, to be put on a par with literacy and numeracy. Does the way we speak matter?
Colin Brazier on LBC. Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
9:49. Let's go to Terry in Bournemouth. Hello, Terry.
Good evening, Ian. Welcome home.
Thank you very much. Is that my friend Mr. Meatloaf?
That's me, Ian. I could not resist ringing up. Because all these people who went to hot countries, I ended up going to Canada in 1987, a long time ago. But it was an experience. We got out there, my ex-wife and I, with our little son. He was 2 at the time, and it was minus 18. And now we purposely went there in the winter to see if we could hack it, and we could, but there were so many things that we missed. We came home about 4 months later.
Oh, you didn't last long. Where were you in Canada?
No, well, we landed in Ottawa, stayed with some of her relatives, and then worked our way down through Ontario, because at the time I was an electrician. I'd finished my apprenticeship, and there was lots of work in Canada for tradespeople rather than the gloomy late 80s in this country. And there was quite a few offers of work, but, you asked a question earlier, what did I miss? Well, it's red post boxes, red buses. And the biggest thing was the ease of access to just get in the car and just drive out to a nice little country pub by a river somewhere. It just didn't exist. It seems a little bit silly now, but it really meant a lot. I did say to your producer that I don't want the authorities to pick me up on this, but sometimes at night I used to go out and drive on the wrong side of the road because it's just crazy. Big American car, and I don't know, was I rebelling or was I protesting? I don't know, but it really got on top of us in the end, because keeping out there
sounds like
holiday,
paradise by the dashboard light to me.
I was not barely 17 and barely dressed. I'm up your neck of the woods on
Corey
Saturday,
is looking at me as if he thinks I'm going a little bit mad tonight. I should explain that Terry is a Meatloaf impersonator and a brilliant one. He not only it sounds like him, he looks like him. Don't you?
I know. So I wanted to be a George Michael tribute, but it just didn't work for me.
Corey would like a little taste of Meatloaf. I don't know whether you're up for that.
Yeah, I can do that. I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way I'm ever gonna
He says that's
love
enough.
you. Don't be sad.
No, he says that's enough.
Okay.
And you're on tour at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, touring around the UK. The show's called Back Into Hell, if anyone's interested. I'm at the Halls in Norwich.
I know, on a day that
Thursday.
I can't go, which is very, very irritating, because I do want to see you live. Anyway, enough of this. Terry, thank you very much. Always good to hear from you. Let's go to Brian in Wigan. I'm not going to ask you to sing, Brian, and just to reassure you.
Some people will do anything for love, won't they?
But they won't do that.
Okay. I just wanted to reiterate pretty much what Terry said, because I was in Canada for 12 years. I went with my parents on holiday when in my late teens. I thought I'd like to live here. I was doing my nurse training at Southport, and then I joined an agency in Scotland, and I had to go and do 2 years in Canada, and I was a nanny in Canada for 2 years, and then I became a nurse, a district nurse in Canada. I was there for 12 years. I met someone. She was from England as well, from Liverpool, and we became pregnant, and she wanted to be with her mum in the during the pregnancy in the first year. So
you came back because of that?
Yeah, I'll let someone quickly get in before you end your show, Ian. So thanks for taking the call. I'll speak to you soon.
Pleasure to talk to you, Brian. Thank you. Andy is in Hampton Court. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Ian. How are you? Okay.
Very well, thank you. Enjoying this phone in.
Yeah, good. No, I just I joined it quite late, and I was just driving somewhere, so I had to pull over to talk to you. But no, one of the things that I found, I used to have property in Spain, and we actually, with my ex-wife, we purposely chose to live in a very Spanish community, so I had a lot of Spanish friends. I had a very basic sort of, I could understand a lot, but couldn't speak so much. Now, and also I'm no great linguist, and I know some people live abroad for years and can't speak the language. And the one thing that I really missed when I was out with a group of people is because I like the hidden meanings, the humour, the humorous comments that you could say in English but wouldn't translate in Spanish, or I wouldn't know how to say them. And I really missed being able to put myself across as being me, and I always felt like this, the kind of slightly dumb foreigner, because you can't actually, people can't get to know you properly unless you can actually express a sense of humour, I don't think,
No, I agree with that. But that's the problem, that particularly, and this is a gross generalisation, but I do think there are so many people so many Brits who live in Spain that make no effort to really integrate into the local Spanish community. They sort of live in little enclaves and just mix with other British people. I'm thinking, well, apart from just the weather, what's the point of moving to a foreign country if you make no attempt to really immerse yourself in it?
Well, no, exactly. That's why we chose the apartment where we did, a flat where we did, to be totally, where we were the only Brits in a block of 16 flats, in this little place. And so, and we've made some great friends there. And actually our closest neighbours spoke English, so that's kind of cheating a bit. But, when you go out with a group of them and they're all speaking Spanish and kind of try and join in, and I really miss being able to put myself across as me. That was my point anyway.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really interesting one. Andy, thank you. Another Terry now, first-time caller in Sutton. Hello, Terry.
Hello, Ian. It's a pleasure to talk to you. I've lived abroad. I've tweaked the nerve, was the gentleman who lived in Malta. My experience for the last 10 years is very lucky to be alive. And I've lost my whole retirement was to live a little village on a little island, and unfortunately, money took over my so-called friend's position, and I was lucky to get out alive in 2020.
Wow.
Consequently, I come back here and caught COVID and nearly died with that.
Oh, this is not a very happy story so far.
I would say to anyone moving abroad, especially some religious countries, just went. I was told that 10 years ago, and I've been all over. I've been all over the world, Ian, but I wanted to live in the sun, and it was this nightmare. My whole family come over. They couldn't. They know what's happened, and it's not.
Terry, your line is giving up on you, I'm afraid, so I'm going to leave it there. But thank you very much. Final caller of the evening is Reg in Blackheath. Hello, Reg.
Oh, good evening, Ian. I'm a great lover of your show.
It's a loving tonight, isn't it? I'm loving it.
Yeah, well, it's nice to hear that you're loving it. Listen, I'm a Sikh cab driver, London black cab taxi driver. I wear a turban and I have a beard. I don't sound like... I don't look like the way I sound. We come from India.
Do any
I'm
of
going to
us?
quickly tell you, with the time you got left, I've been told by your... I'm going to quickly tell you a story. With the black cab, I've recently been abroad. And I'll tell you what, I haven't been abroad. All I do is go to my own country in India, where I was born. And somebody took me, one of the customers took me to France. We went to Paris, the Eiffel Tower. And then the following day, he said, would you like to go to Spain? So don't forget, I've got the cab with me. Would you like to go to Spain?
And the meter's on.
I drove him to Spain. And then when we got to Spain, he said, would you like to go to Portugal? And then I went to Portugal. And then he said, Saf. Then we went to Africa. Then we went to Morocco. We went to Tangier, Seville. And went to Bordeaux, one of the finest, best winemakers in the world. And until you go abroad, you don't realise how nice people are, how nice quality of life can become. All the countries, the places, the historic buildings. I mean, I've seen buildings as a London cab driver. 53 years I've been in the London black cab trade, and 48 years as a London black cab.
What we want to know, Reg, is was the meter on for this trip?
Well, the meter was on, I'll be honest with you.
Oh, my goodness.
But, yeah, it was on, yeah.
And the size of the tip was...
Yeah, well, I don't have to work anymore.
And that's the way we're going to finish the show, ladies and gentlemen. Reg, great caller to finish with. Thank you very much.